Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
And I'm MK.
And how are you?
I am pretty good. I went to a football game on Saturday, so that was
Hmm.
nice. It was the Bills Carolina preseason game. I wore my Carolina jersey with my Bills jersey over it. So that when I was like around the public, I was wearing my Bills jersey, but then once I was in my box, I could decide which one I was going to wear. And then I was wearing my Carolina jersey for most of it, truly, not because I was rooting for Carolina, but because my Bills jersey is like an actual jersey and my Carolina jersey
Mm,
is like a t-shirt jersey. So I was so hot
yeah.
because it was like 80 degrees.
It does feel a little blasphemous though.
Um, yeah, I always go to the care like that's the one thing that like my dad like obviously he's not necessarily always in charge of all of the tickets, but we usually only play Carolina in preseason, and my dad can has more sway with the preseason tickets. And so I will always go to a Bills Carolina game, and I will always go
Mm.
confusingly rooting for both teams. Like I'll literally sit there and be like, "Oh, that was such a good play," and then the other team will have the ball, and I'll be like, "That was such a good play." Like it's not really that
Yeah.
I'm just like, "That's good football." Um, the game was rough. Carolina won, but to be fair, Carolina played their starters for the first like half of the game, and the Bills were playing like
That's
their
a weird preseason choice.
right. I mean, to be fair, Bryce Young needs as much practice time as he can possibly get. He looked good, and he didn't play the whole game. I think he played like the first two drives. Um, but the Bills were like playing their like third and fourth string people who were fighting for roster
Right.
spots, and we still only lost by one score.
And
So
didn't they all get hurt or was that the weekend before?
that was the weekend before everybody got fucking
Okay.
hurt. Everybody got
Yeah.
hurt. Yeah. So because today is Monday, it's the Monday before the season. I think today is
We
the
have one more.
well, no, I know, but I think this is the week that everybody's teams have to be finalized. So today is when people are putting 53 men rosters out.
Hmm.
I know we still have a full week before the season starts because it starts not this Thursday coming
This
up, but
Sunday. Yeah, Thursday.
the following Thursday.
Hmm.
But I believe by the end of this week, all 53 man teams have to be final.
I see. I
So that's
see.
when you cut people and send them to the practice squad or put them up for
Right.
free agency. And they have to do it certain above, because if you drop somebody, somebody has to be able to pick them up. They usually don't,
Yeah. One of
but
my friends from college got dropped to free agent at this time last year, and it was a
oof.
real bummer because he tore his ACL like the year before, and he was a pretty big starter, and so like it was a real bummer for him.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. The kid that my brother went to high school with, I don't know who or where he is playing right now. I think
You can close the door if you want. Thank you.
he yeah, oh no, he's nobody. He was released by the Steelers last December.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he was picked up this year. But we shall see. We shall see. But yeah, so it was interesting. So yeah, it was a good game. I'm excited for the football season. Um, I have my fantasy draft next week, and
Me
um,
too.
we have I'm joining a league that was already in play, like not a new league.
Hmm.
Um, and they have one keeper, but the guy that I'm taking the team over from had a fucking awful team, and not a single person on his team is worth a first round pick. Like the only person on the team that he would even consider keeping is James Cook, but James Cook is not a first round pick.
Yeah.
So but everybody else has their keepers. So like I don't even know what's gonna happen next week. I'm like,
Yeah. Everyone on my team except Josh Allen pretty much got traded to a new team this year. And so I'm like, I have to realign my
what's my
team.
team? Yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I'm also ready for football. Um, we have our draft on Monday while I'll be in Portland. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna hope for the best. I did convince them not to put it on Sunday when I was gonna be driving for 4 hours. So
Yeah, that's nice.
at least I won't be driving for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Um, and so we have our draft coming up, and I need to like again look at who is where and figure out what I want on my team.
Uh,
But Nick asked me last night, he listens to this Saints Happy Hour podcast, and they're of course getting ready to do a live show because the season's starting. And so we're
yeah.
going to a show on the 6th. I'm very excited. He asked me last night, he was like, are you interested in that? I was like, is it an event? And it is about something I do
Right.
like.
Yeah.
Yes, I am
I
interested.
I'm interested. It's okay.
Um,
I'm gonna be at a public high school to teach for the first time in my entire life. So like
mhm.
there's like homecoming parade and stuff,
Oh yeah.
which I have never
Hmm.
experienced. I didn't go to public high school. I've never taught at a public high
Right.
school. Like I've never experienced homecoming before, ever.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for you.
So like I'm like, I don't know.
That's thrilling. Um, all those pictures we showed you last week from high school, those were
Yeah.
homecoming week. So
It'll be interesting. It's in October, so
that's yeah, I love that. I'm getting something in the mail today from my college regarding homecoming week, it seems. Right, because I have the informed delivery, so it's like Louisiana Tech would like to tell you about this College of Business event. Thank you.
great.
I don't know where I'll be then, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Um, yeah. So it's I'm soups ready for football season. I don't know what else is going on in the world, to be fair.
Yeah.
I did receive a baby brat while we were in process. I'm very pleased about that too.
Perfect.
Um, but yeah, so while we're in this chaotic transitioning of life, do you have some spiritual guidance for me?
I sure do. I just have to pull it up
Mhm.
and remember what we did last time.
It was a very surgical one last time.
It was, and it was was it the one that was an opening week that didn't feel like it should have been an opening week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Cool. Then I know where we are.
Hmm.
They say practice makes perfect. Theory is the more you think like a surgeon, the more you become one. The better you get at remaining neutral, clinical, cut, suture, close, and the harder it becomes to turn it off, to stop thinking like a surgeon and remember what it means to think like a human being.
Yeah.
Yep. That was
Cool.
terrible. That
Mhm.
was terrible. But basically, don't focus so hard on getting better at things that you stop being a person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
And what I need to tell myself every day of my life. So I get it. It's fine. So this week, just stabbed myself with my nail. Everything's fine. This week we are talking about Hannibal, season 2, episode 7, Yakimono, which is flame grilled food. Um, Fun. It aired April 11th of 2014, and it was rated 9.2 out of 10. We are still in our episodes of 9.2.
Which is good. I do think this one was, I would have probably put it slightly
I
below
would have
the
gone like a
last two.
9.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
have put it slightly below the last two. Still fantastic. The end,
Hmm.
wild. But
I thought the same thing. Can you guess what our number one song is?
I'm gonna go ahead and say Happy by Pharrell.
Correct. Correct. Our number one movie is also still the same. It's Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Of course, of course.
And then our number one book is NYPD Red 2 by James Patterson and Marshall Karp. So, you know,
Yeah.
kind of Patterson stuff.
And you said,
Um,
wait, you said what day was this again?
April 11th.
April 11th. All right.
Could
I
have
just
been Easter. Who's to say?
I just like to
Um,
check. What was I up
yeah.
to? Who was I as a person?
Well, in 2014,
So
I was
it was not Easter because it was a Friday.
was a
So
Friday. Yeah.
yeah.
I realized that as I said it. I was in college. Yeah, I graduated college to 2015. So you were getting ready to graduate.
But I was actually already graduated. I graduated in
Right.
December of
December.
2013. But it was the opening day for the spring musical that I was not in, that I went to go see my friends
Mhm.
perform in. Um, but yeah, so
Nice.
I was at NAS to see the opening day of the show, but I was already graduated.
Nice, nice. Well, a couple of other things that happened. There was a lot of like weird things, like there was a big FedEx truck crash and like some other disaster thing that was like minor in comparison to what we normally see, but also just like a lot of little things kept happening.
Yeah.
So I've only pulled a couple of facts for you today. It was the day that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was announced. So this was the year Peter Gabriel, Hall & Oates, Kiss, Nirvana, Linda Ronstadt, and Cat Stevens were inducted.
Okay.
Or were announced. That it wasn't the actual induction day.
Yeah.
And then also this was the day that it was announced that Stephen Colbert was going to succeed Letterman. So
Right, because we
what a
just talked
time.
about Letterman's last show a couple
Yep.
weeks ago.
Yep.
Nice.
And so now we have picked someone to replace him. Um,
Very nice.
I have like no new information past that. The director is Michael Reimer, the writer Steve Lightfoot, the editor Stephen Phillipson, and we have zero new people that we have not talked about. We have talked about everyone in this episode.
Makes
So
sense. Yeah, makes sense.
so that's our intro. It's a little shorter than normal, but it is what it is. So let's get into it. So we start with where we left off. Jack is putting Miriam into an ambulance and they are searching the property to see what else they can find on this land. And so we go over to the lab and the team is checking her out. They're taking samples to see if they can, find anything on her.
Yeah.
And we flash over to Jack, who is at the same time listening on repeat to the message of that Miriam called and left, or that the Ripper left him, of Miriam's recording. And so then we go to Jack and Miriam, and they're talking about everything. And she's like, thank you for finding me. Thank you for never giving up. And she's like, okay, I'm ready to see him. And Jack's like, what? She's like, the Ripper. And he's like, oh, right. We haven't caught him yet. Like,
Awkward.
sorry about it.
I know you've been gone for 2 years, but in those 2 years, we've accomplished nothing.
Nothing. Only more people have died. So, but she can't remember who he is at all. She's like, I remember very like random things. I had a dream about drowning. I remember the flowers. I remember the sting of the needle. And I remember his calming, like deeper voice. But that is all. Like, I can't picture him. And then of course they're both blaming themselves for her going missing. She's like, I stepped out of line. I did what I wasn't supposed to do. And Jack's like, no, but I let you. And she's like, absolutely not. So yeah, everyone's blaming themselves. And she does remember, however, whenever the Ripper removed her arm to send to Jack, or her, forearm and hand to send to Jack. Even though she doesn't remember much more than that, because all she could see was the light surrounding him as a silhouette. And he was, and she was like, I just knew he was saving me for last. Like,
yeah. And she was like, he was so nice when he took my arm off. He like told me what he was going to do and then put me to sleep. And I was like, what the fuck?
But also he cut your arm off. Like,
right. It was so nice when he amputated me without reason.
Right. Specifically to upset you. Like, yeah. No, wild time. So we go to our new power couple, Bloom and Hannibal. And Bloom is telling him all about this witness. She's like, we finally found someone. Like, one of the victims that has not died has been found.
If she doesn't shut the fuck up,
I can't with her. But he's like, oh, well, obviously you're here because she can't recognize by looks alone. She needs to hear the voice.
Yeah.
That's the only way that she can recognize any of this. And of course, Bloom doesn't say anything, but Hannibal's smarter than her. And so he's like,
Hannibal's
absolutely
smarter than all of us.
Yes, correct. Except Will.
Well, yeah.
But Will also has a brain injury disease.
Yeah,
so
but
also
even Will, like, yes, Will is smart, but even Will is not as smart as Hannibal, because the number of things in this episode that literally are just Hannibal knowing exactly how they're going to do something and making sure to cover that.
Right. It's wild. Yeah. But yeah, so of course he, as he does, walks straight up to the glass so she can see his face full forward.
Yeah.
And talk so she can hear his voice.
Yeah.
And she says it's not him.
I'm so pissed.
Then we go to the credits. Because, he's already planned 10 steps ahead.
I literally was like, why is she lying? And Dan goes, I don't know if she's
I don't
lying or
think
if
she's lying.
she's been conditioned. I go, no, she's
Mhm.
lying.
I don't think she knows she's lying.
I know. Stupid.
Mm. And so then we go to Chilton and Will, our new power team. Um, it turns out the prosecutor has dropped all charges against Will after finding Miriam. They're
Because
just like, oh, we were wrong.
well, because after everything, it's like, oh, wait, literally, there is actually no proof of any of this having ever been Will.
Right. And so we've just kept you locked up for many moons. For no reason. It's totally fine. Okay, bye. Like,
But also
and
the exit process.
was just opening the door.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
okay, go. And then he's just wandering around the facility. I was like,
I don't think
could
this
you
is quite right.
could you imagine the damage that could cause if he was insane?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we saw what happened when Gideon got loose. Wild. So Chilton also says that he wants nothing more than for Hannibal Lecter to switch places with him. He's like, I believe you. Like,
Yeah.
obviously it's not you. Hopefully we can find a way to switch this out. Um, and Will's like, okay, the way to do it, you confess. Like, that is the answer. You go, you tell Jack everything that's happened
Yeah.
because you mess with all of our brains, but you also know that Hannibal did it, and that is the only solution.
The
And
problem
John's like,
yeah, the problem is that Chilton tried that. Like he
yeah,
did in fact actually already try that. But there's no
he did, but not quite all the way. Like he still held stuff back, you know?
he did, but to be fair, I don't think the stuff that he held back was that detrimental. The problem is he had the story. He told his side of the story. He told Will and Gideon's side of the story. He played the tape, and then Gideon was like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about." And for some reason, Jack was like, "I believe the psycho who ripped a nurse's eyeballs out rather than
Right.
the doctor because he's unethical."
Right. But also now we
Sir,
have Will as
right,
a witness as
but
opposed
I'm
to
like,
Gideon.
but sir, look at the way you run your department, and
Mhm.
you really, really want to tell me that ethics are a sticking point for you?
Right. Right. We've already talked about how many ways you have stepped out of line. Um, yeah. Bless him. But Will tells him that, like, obviously he can be a witness now. He can be understood. And he also tells him, so Chilton's like, well, how come he just never killed you? Like, why are you still alive? And he's like, oh, he never killed me because he wanted to be friends. Like, obviously, which
Yeah,
is true.
true.
But
Dan was like, oh, and I go, yeah, it sucks, but it's accurate.
it's the only reason Will is still alive. And then our friend Jack shows up to pick up Will because he's like, so sorry, my bad. You are not a murderer. But good news, we found Miriam. And he tells Will that Miriam says it's not Hannibal. He's like, we did all the tests, we ran him in front of her, and was like, is that good enough for you? And
He
Jack's like,
was
absolutely
absolutely
not.
not. No,
0%. That is
which
not
is
it.
the best thing he's ever done.
Right, right, right. So now we go back to the Ripper's hideaway. And Jack has taken Will out there to show exactly where he found Miriam. They see all of the like canisters of Beverly's blood. And so we see everything that's like, been going on.
Yeah.
Um, and then we get a real Will's rewind. And he clears out the room to back everything up. And then we start seeing like the flowers growing, which then leads us into the tree growing into the office, the one that's put in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And how the Ripper has sowed seeds like into the body, not like sow, but like
Yes.
SOW. sewed into the body and watched them grow, and how like this was all part of his design, obviously. And he was like, and then when he comes back, he's like, oh, he was never gonna kill Miriam. Like he only brought her here
For you to
because
find her.
he wanted you to find her. Which is just the most. Um, so we go to Will and Bloom, which, my God. So he goes and he gets his dogs. Like they're, she's brought them back to his house and he's going to see them. And he's obviously very pleased to see his puppies. We learned that Bloom got her own dog because she has been so attached to having pets that now she also has her own dog. And Will is like, if if we didn't know Will and what he'd been through, he sounds like a like petulant teenager.
Oh,
The
yeah.
way he's like talking to her about Hannibal. Granted, that is very mild for what it should be, but
Correct.
out of
But
context.
she also sounds like a petulant teenager.
Right.
She sounds like somebody who like her boyfriend dumped her, so she started dating his best friend and is pretending she did nothing wrong.
Yeah, 100% that's what's going on. And so they're talking about it, and Will's just like super upset with her, and he's like, I don't
She,
understand why all this is happening. And she's like, you tried to kill Hannibal. Like, why
and
would you
then
do
he like
that?
sees it in her face and he's like, "Oh, you dumb bitch."
Yeah. Yes. But he does not say that to her because that doesn't get you anywhere. But he does, you see his realization that they're together, and he's like, he's dangerous. Like, this is important for you to know and to like actually understand.
She goes, "Is he safe?" And he goes, "From me
From
or
me
for
for
you?" Because
you.
like mm, gross.
Those are two different questions.
Yeah. Because
Um,
no and no.
no, right. Yeah. Um, and then we go over to Chilton Jack. And Chilton just like, this is why no one listens to him, because he just sounds like the most pompous man on the planet when he starts talking. Granted, we do then break it down a bit more, but every time he starts talking to someone, he acts like he's 10 levels above them. And
I
it's like,
mean,
that's not going to get you anywhere.
unfortunately, that's probably because he doesn't like he tries. I really do think he tries. I think he like runs in social circles where that's normal and like
Mm-hmm.
that's why
Oh,
he
for
like
sure.
and that's why he like does stop and break himself down because like I don't think he's in like he is a pompous asshole, but like not maliciously, just like
Yeah.
doesn't know any better.
I think you're right. Um, unfortunately. But yeah, so he then once he realizes like he gets into his like this is a really serious conversation, like this is how things are, and he starts telling him, he's like, so as you see, everyone that the Ripper's gone after is dead, except me, and Miriam, obviously, but
Yeah.
I would like to remain not
Not
dead for the foreseeable future.
correct.
And I was like, that is fair. And then Chilton says he wants to talk with Miriam. He wants to like figure out more and like see it because he had so many breakthroughs with Will to help him remember. So he's like, I think I could do the same with Miriam, which is fine. So we go to Miriam and she's getting a new hand, which is good for her when
Yeah.
Will comes to see her. And so the TV I'm watching this on
Yeah.
is really old.
Hold
Did
on. Oh,
oh,
your microphone died.
am I back?
Yes.
Okay. So the TV I'm watching on is really old, and so it like sometimes cuts out, sometimes has weird lighting in places. Did this episode actually look darker in most of these scenes than it has
Yes.
been?
Yes.
Okay, because it looked like it almost felt like, you know how when we get a dream state, but you have the shaded edges? It felt like that without the shaded edges.
Oh, yeah, no, it was
Um,
actually dark. It was actually
okay.
dark for the whole thing. I mean, it's okay. My TV was doing that weird thing last week when we
Oh
couldn't
yeah,
figure out if the rippling was in the screen or not.
in the screen tonight. Right. Yeah, that's why I thought I'd ask, because if it's happening on both TVs, even though both TVs may or may not be always correct, probably if
I
it
mean,
happened the same time it was.
I was watching it on Doug's TV, which is
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and so it was actually dark. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. But yeah, so and then she starts remembering a little bit and she remembers his chamber music, obviously, and she starts remembering his voice. And so like when she says that, the first indication should have been, oh, for sure this is Hannibal. Like who else is playing chamber music?
The problem is, and this comes up later, that Chilton explains everything about Hannibal that makes the profile is true about him too.
Yeah, yeah, that's really unfortunate for everyone involved, except Hannibal. Um, but we then go to Hannibal, who is at home, and he goes to the fridge, and of course, he turns around and Will is in his house
With a
because
gun.
that is what happens. Yep. And so Will has a gun. He says they're going to pick up where they left off. He's like, last time Jack interrupted us. So this
But
time,
it was so funny. He goes, our last kitchen conversation was
yeah.
interrupted. And I was like, you've lost your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. But then he starts telling him, he's like, so how did Miriam find you? Like, she found you. She doesn't remember anything. What was that piece of information that she found that linked all of this to you that you've now completely removed from all of society? Like, how did this happen? And he's, of course, getting ready to like pull the trigger. And Hannibal's like, there's no way you're going to shoot me. Like, there are two things that could happen. One, you're shooting an innocent man. Like, and then that sucks because you shot an innocent man. Two, if I am the Ripper, aka if I did it, he's like, then you're never going to get the answers you're looking for.
He's like, who else is going to tell you what you need to know?
Right. He's like, so these are you don't have an option but to not shoot me. Um, and so of course, Will walks away. It's never over. It's never over.
It was the correct thing to do.
It was the correct thing to do because for sure, then like, oh, never. It would have never been solved. I mean,
No.
again, no death, but
Yeah.
ugh, what a time. So then we have this like really quick flashback into current scene with Miriam. And so we start with the time she walked into Hannibal's office 2 years ago, that then goes and she looks so fresh and young, bless her heart.
I know.
And it melds into today where her
Yeah.
and Jack are going to visit Hannibal. Because of course, Jack is listening enough to believe that it could still be Hannibal. And
Yes.
so he's like, well, we're just gonna keep doing this. We're gonna keep like whatever. And Miriam is just wandering around the room, trying to figure out like if anything catches her eye. And then this is when Jack decides to tell her, which is the right time. He is really doing a good job as an FBI agent. It
Oh
only
yeah,
took a
no,
season and a half.
this episode was like the first time that I was like, Jack almost seems like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, for sure. Because he chooses this moment to play the voicemail for her that he never told her about. Which again, if it was gonna, click memory in the place where it happened, would probably be where it would, click on. So turns out, of course, she doesn't remember it at all. So then Hannibal's like, oh, well, we can try and help you remember. And he puts her into this like almost hypnosis state. It doesn't quite look like hypnosis, but that's basically what the outcome is. And he's using the same words that she remembered about you're waking up in a safe place. And he's using the same lighting. Like this man, oh my gosh. Ugh. But
Psycho.
turns out that she's not remembering it. And the last thing she does remember is the wound man, which is innocuous this moment. We're just like,
Well, no, I mean it's the drawing that she found in his house, or when she
right.
visited him the first time. It was the drawing that she found, which matches one of the early Ripper victims,
Yeah.
which is what the Gideon's murder was attempting to recreate.
Right. Which like, but there's no connection there still, like for
Right.
us. Right.
Yeah.
And but that is the last thing she remembers. And so then we go back to the lab and we learn that they found a partial print on the flowers, on the flower petal, and it was Hannibal's fingerprint. And Jack's like, the problem is that Will said we're gonna only find stuff that leads us away from the Ripper here. Like because he's so meticulous, we're gonna find some things that look like him but lead away from him. And so I was
Yeah.
like, oh God, of course that's the thing you latch on to after all these episodes. Because they also found drugs in Miriam's system and it's in her blood. And it also turns out that these are the same drugs that Chilton used, both in Gideon and in Will. And that Hannibal used on Will, but no one seems to know. So that's fine. And so Bloom, who is obviously already decided it's Chilton and not Hannibal, is like, those are all the same as Chilton. Everybody's like, well, what do we do? And Jack's like, we bring them both in.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know one way or another, so therefore both of them now have to come in, which is again fair. Making good decisions, Jack.
Correct.
Unfortunately, the next scene we go to Chilton's house, and he's hearing a beeping that I had no doubt was about to turn into the flatline, which is what it did. Um, and when he goes downstairs, it is Gideon's head and torso, along with pieces of him around him, um, which is unfortunate for
Yep.
everyone involved, including the audience watching the show.
Oh yeah.
So not great. And obviously his instinct is to just run away from this horrific situation. Unfortunately, he trips, and there's Hannibal.
Well, he trips because Hannibal put things there for him to trip.
Yes. It was part of his design, but he but he does fall. Hannibal finds him, and there's a knock on the door, and it's the FBI, and Hannibal knocks him out and tells him, he's like, your only option is to run.
To be honest, I, for a split second at this scene, did not think that Hannibal was going to kill the other agents. I thought he was just going to open the door. But then I was like, but I was like, you can't just open the door in your creepy plastic suit. Everyone's going to know it's you fucker. And so then when Chilton wakes up, I was entirely unprepared for what happened. 0% of me should have been unprepared for that. I should have seen exactly what Hannibal was doing. I was entirely unprepared.
Yeah, I thought it was like Jack FBI team, and so I thought that Hannibal was doing all this, knocking him out and then like bolting. But then he went to head towards the door, which then also threw me off because I was like, what are you doing? Why is this happening? Like, I don't understand. And then I was like, he can't, because my instinct would have been he's gonna kill them. But I had already put in my head that it was Jack's team. I was like, well, he's not killing Jack and the team. Like,
yeah,
we know that. And so I was also very confused in this moment. But don't worry. We then learn what happens because Chilton wakes up with a knife in his hand and a gun on his leg, and he's covered in blood. And this blood is leading up to his kitchen, where there's a dead and disemboweled FBI agent, and Gideon as the wounded man.
No, I thought it was the second FBI agent. I thought they were both FBI agents.
I thought that was Gideon.
Oh no, because he had legs.
Oh, I didn't see the legs. I thought it was the torso. No, because I did not look too closely, to be fair.
It was disgusting. Yeah. No, it was a full human with the wounded man. So it was the second. There was two agents and they were both dead.
I see.
Which makes sense because
makes more sense.
Nobody goes to a call like that alone.
Unless you're Jack.
Well, Jack's a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Bless him. Yeah. So obviously he leaves because he's like, this is not a good thing. And he goes to Will's house and asks to use his shower because now they're besties. And Will lets him in to use the shower. And I was like, where are we going? I was like, are we both on the run now? Like, obviously we believe Chilton because we know it's Hannibal. Will knows it's Hannibal. But like, how do you do this? So we go back to Chilton's house. The FBI, Jack's team, have found Gideon and the agents along with the notes on the wounded man. And so then we go back to Will's. It's pretty short scene, but it was important. And so then we go to Will's, and Chilton's telling him how this is where he starts talking about how like literally everything in my life lines up with everything in Hannibal's. We're both doctors. We both have these kind of credentials. We both like these things. We both like are kind of outside of our, communities. Like it's everything lines up. And he's like, and that's when he also realizes like that was always the plan. Like it was always a plan to make him the patsy.
Yep.
And and then he's like, so see ya when you catch it. Because he's like, I'm going to catch him. And he's like, well, I'll see you then from my hidden land off the grid in 17 countries over. Like, and Will's like, no, it's better not to run. Like they're tracking all of your, IDs, your credit cards, stuff like that. Like they're gonna catch you, first of all. If you run, it just makes you look more guilty. Like, let's just work together and do all of this. Turns out it's because Will has already called Jack because he's like, Chilton's not gonna actually listen when I say this, but it is
Yeah.
the only proper solution.
Correct.
So he's already called Jack, who is now there by himself.
Also, but there by himself with no trust in Will. After all of this about I couldn't find you, I should have listened to you, you were right. 0% of him thinks that Chilton could be innocent.
Yeah, yeah.
Did we not
No.
just talk about jumping to conclusions?
Right. Right.
Did we not just
And
talk
like,
about the fact that the evidence was supposed to point away from the Ripper? So why would 3 victims be in Chilton's house?
yes, yes. That makes 0 sense. So of course, before Jack comes in, Chilton pulls out a gun on him, and Will tells him, he's like, "You're not a killer." He's
Yeah.
like, "Obviously, you're not going to shoot me."
You can't.
Right. And so he doesn't. And
Which
so
we
Jack
know
does,
is true because Chilton almost threw up. Every time he looked at a body in his house, he was about to
yeah.
vomit.
Granted, those were really intense scenes of dead bodies.
Fair.
It's a little more than just a gunshot.
Fair.
So,
But it has
also,
it wasn't the first time we saw Chilton nauseous at death.
yeah, because he's not a like he is technically a medical doctor, but he works in psychology, not in blood and guts.
Because the blood and guts freaks him out.
Uh-huh. Mhm. So, Jack goes in and Chilton has, of course, run out the back door. Now we know this man has a bad leg already. So he's not getting very far. And of course he
Right.
doesn't. He trips and Jack shoots at him. And then he just stands up and turns around and gives himself in. Like he's just like, yeah, no, obviously
Whatever.
this
Yeah,
is
like obviously
the
I'm not
end.
getting away from this.
Right. So we go back to the lab and the team's going through Chilton's belongings and they are so fussed at him. Like it's the same thing when they arrested Will and were going through his things other than Beverly, where they were just like, no, you're totally a monster. Like, and it's just like, we've done this before and you were wrong before.
Right.
Maybe give a little bit more grace while we're figuring things out. But sure. And he asked to speak to Will because he's like, that's the only human that even kind of believes me.
Yeah.
But of course, he does not go to Will. He is then put in with Bloom, and he is not thrilled. He's like, oh, he's like, just another way to knock me down.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not what I wanted. She, of course, 100% believes he's the Ripper. No questions. No questions at all. And as he's going through this situation with Bloom, we learn that, again, it's because Miriam is listening for his voice. And unfortunately, she does indeed recognize his voice and straight up shoots him through the glass. So we don't know if he's dead or not, but she does shoot him and it does look bad. But then we go to Hannibal, who is drinking wine in his office, as he does. And Will stops by, who looks very dapper. He is very put together, has groomed himself.
He's finally like showered after prison.
Yeah. And we learn that Hannibal just kept Will's standing appointment open just in case. Because why not?
What a piece of shit.
And he says that like there's a lot to, grieve over, a lot to go through. And he was like, the Ripper's over, the friendship is over. Like these are all things you need to talk through. And so Will's like, yeah, I need to work through all of this. I need to work through it with the source. So I'm back for therapy. And the episode ends with Hannibal just saying, where shall we begin? What is this episode? Thoughts, feelings?
My thoughts and feelings were that there were 2 directions that the
Mhm.
ending could have gone in. Like that could be why the way it ended, like where it's going from here. There are 2 directions. One is the one I really wish was true. One is what I think is true.
Sure.
And the one that I think is probably true is that Chilton is dead. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
that was legitimately because Miriam reacted so viscerally in that moment. What I wish was true was that that was intentional to convince Alana that they were convinced of Chilton so that it would separate her from the investigation of Hannibal because she's clearly not got her head on straight.
Mm-hmm.
But that is very wishful thinking.
Yeah, I don't think it's that one. I don't know that I think that Chilton's dead. I don't remember how many episodes he's supposed to be in. I'm sure I looked it up, but it's been a lot, so I don't know.
Yeah.
If he's not dead, he will die. He'll have to because,
Yeah.
they have to get rid of any connection to the Ripper. But also, like, if he dies now with everyone thinking he's the Ripper, what's next?
Right.
Like, we still have a season and a half.
Yeah.
And, like, is it just Will aimlessly trying to kill Hannibal or get him to confess or get him caught? Like,
Right. Like where
because
does
that's
this
not
go?
enough.
Right. Like, I mean, and the thing is, like, obviously, like in the future, in like Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal's caught.
Right.
So like where does this show go? Does the show go all the way up until the point where he is caught? Does he get caught earlier and then it's still him working from prison with the FBI? Like where are we going?
So this is what I think based on not having seen Red Dragon. I believe that he gets called at the end of Red Dragon because that's the first one that Will is actually introduced in. And so I think that he actually gets caught there, and I think this leads up to Red Dragon.
Okay.
And so I don't think he's going to get caught in this series. I can't be certain again because I've only seen Silence of the Lambs and now Hannibal Rising.
Yeah.
So I can't be certain, but I think that that's what happens. So I don't think he ever gets caught, which is fine.
To be fair, it is fine, but then they're going to have to do something else because at the point that they're at in the story right now, I cannot have another season and a half of just puttering back and forth of it's Hannibal, no, it's not. Like it's not.
I don't think it's going to be that way because I've heard so many good reviews for this. And like we know Jack has his breaking point with Hannibal. And so like what causes that? Like does Miriam have a different memory? But my guess is that Hannibal used a voice modulator where he sounded like Chilton while he was talking to her.
For sure.
And so I don't think she's going to remember that. And by using the light and the silhouette, I don't think she's going to remember from that. So I think she's a loose end. Like or like not a loose end, a dead end. Like I don't think she's going to be any help at all.
I think he set her up to distract from him.
Right. And so I don't know. I also don't know where it could go because like I guess he could try to kill someone else and they could get away.
Yeah.
And maybe because he's no longer working on the Ripper case with FBI, we wouldn't have another Georgia situation where he has the ability to break in and like, kill her. But I don't know. And maybe they do and maybe Jack has figured it out from some other reason. And at the end, they have this big blowout and, Hannibal runs and Hannibal's on the run for the last. I don't really know because I don't know how Red Dragon starts. So I don't know if he's on the run in Red Dragon or if he's just a regular guy in Red Dragon until he's caught. But because I feel like the people we have left have already kind of come to their points with Hannibal. Like Chilton was our last big one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Alana's gonna die.
Well, yeah, sure, but like she's not going to be helpful.
Oh, no.
That's more what I mean is she's not in a position to be helpful because one, she's a moron.
Yeah.
And two, like she will die, but I don't think it'll be helpful again in any way.
No.
So yeah, so what do you think we're gonna get into next episode? Because you think Chilton's dead.
I think Chilton's
for
dead.
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think happens next?
I think people get complacent. I think there's going to be an air of, well, we caught him, and then another Ripper murder is going to happen, and it's going to fuck everybody's shit up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to have to be a non-rippery murder, because I don't think Hannibal would be dumb enough to immediately commit another murder, but I mean, he can't stop killing, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to commit a murder that doesn't look like the Ripper.
See, I think that there's been too much time since the last, like, not that it's been a lot of time, it hasn't really been that much time, but enough. But the last few murders he's done haven't been for food stock, they've been for deception and
well, Gideon, I mean,
strategy.
he took a lot
That's
of
true.
Gideon's body
He did
parts,
take a lot
and
of
that
Gideon's
was,
body parts.
this episode.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's gonna back off a bit, or even if, I mean, even if he takes body parts, like, I just don't think it's
Well,
gonna
I guess it
scream the
depends. I
Ripper.
guess it depends because it could be time. Because if they're complacent, if Chilton is, they think Chilton's done, and so the next episode takes place 4, 5, 6 weeks in the future.
Yeah, that's true.
So
That's true. Because I think, did it say 12 weeks ago when we had the first episode? Was it 12 weeks difference from the beginning to the end? Okay.
Yes.
So it very well could be a 4 to 5 week jump for these last. I did look, it's 13 episodes.
Yeah.
So we have 5 more, 8, 9, 10, 11,
6.
12, 13, 6 more. Yeah. So we have 6 more. So I mean, and this was 7. So we are right at the halfway. We got our cliff. And I will tell you that we do dip down in ratings a bit. Not a ton, obviously, because a lot of height going on here and emotions, but we do dip down a little bit before coming back up. So I mean, we're at those episodes that are going to be a little blander, I guess you could say. But yeah, I don't know that I'm convinced Chilton's dead.
Okay.
I think
I'd be happier if he wasn't, but I think he is.
I don't know that he's usable. I don't know that he's functional. But I could see him not being all the way dead, and but being so close to death that Hannibal could go in and finish the job and no one would know that, like, it wasn't just the end of, like, I could see that kind of being the next episode. Is him finishing the job Miriam started. And there's no way, because then there's no way to know, like, no one will be able to tell that he killed him if he's that close to death already, that he could kill without it being a red flag so quickly after, So I don't know though. We'll see. I only have one piece of trivia for you. When Miriam's explanation of the fresh flower is the sting of the needle, that's the description of what happened to Clarice from the book. So they don't actually say it that way in the movie, is my understanding, but that is the direct, like, description from the book, is the way she used. So who do you want to punch?
So many people.
I know.
Honestly, Alana.
Yeah.
There's a lot of choices. There's a lot of choices, but Alana is just a fucking piece of work.
Yeah, she was my top choice as well, because my God, she is just too much. But because you went with Alana, I'm gonna go with Hannibal.
Valid.
Because I don't know that I've punched him in a while, and if I have, he just needed it again today.
Always.
So who's your MVP?
Will?
Yeah. He is the correct one.
Yeah.
But again, because you went with Will, I'm gonna go with Jack. I know he had some moments, but
but he did try.
He tried a lot harder, and there's just not a lot of other redeeming characters this episode.
Yeah.
Because, like, all in all, Chilton was not a bad character, but he still made really dumb choices. So I don't know that I can really.
Miriam wasn't really at fault for her dumb choices, but she fucked everything up.
Yes, she messed everything up the whole time. So for sure.
And the Tweedles were useless.
As always.
Yeah.
As always.
I love that I've just started calling them.
It tracks though. It tracks. But yeah, so on that note, if you have any thoughts, feelings, etc., you can email us, deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CECloud13.
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And we will see you for our next Sci-Fi Sunday.
Bye.